Tonight we wake to rain. You open your eyes in the darkness and the first thing you hear is the drip. Not one drip, a dozen, maybe more. Each finding its own rhythm on the packed earth floor somewhere near your feet. The thatch above you has soaked through in that one spot again. The spot you've meant to fix since last autumn. And you listen to the water's patience as it wears its tiny path into the ground. Outside, the rain falls on everything you own. On the few sheep huddled against the stone wall you haven't built yet. On the field where tomorrow you'll begin the work that will outlive your grandchildren. You lie still on your bed of rushes and straw, your blanket pulled up to your chin, and you think about the stones. You've been thinking about them for weeks, ever since your father said the field needed dividing, ever since you walked the line where the new wall would go and saw them waiting there. The limestone. The grey bones of this place. They've been in the ground since before anyone thought to call this island. Since before the first monk scratched his first prayer into a slab of the same rock you'll soon be lifting. They've waited through the Romans who never came here, through the Vikings who did, through the Normans who built their own walls with stone stolen from older walls, through all of it. And now they are waiting for you. You probably won't finish this wall before winter. You probably won't live to see it become the ancient thing it's meant to be. That's the reality of building with stone in this country. You're not making something for yourself. You're making something for the ground, for the sheep that haven't been born yet, for the great-grandchildren who'll lean against your work on some far-off evening and never once think about the man who stacked the stones. But that's the job. And the rain is falling. And the day is coming. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now, dim the lights, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You throw the blanket back and the cold hits you like a hand on your chest. The fire in the center of the room has burned down to embers, just a faint orange glow in the darkness, and you cross to it on feet that know exactly where each cold patch of floor lies. You blow on the coals, add a few small sticks, watch the flames catch and throw light against the blackened pot hanging from its chain. This is the same fire your mother cooked on. The same fire her mother cooked on. The same fire that's burned in this spot for longer than anyone can remember. The smoke finds its way to the hole in the roof, mostly. And what doesn't find its way hangs in the air and settles into your clothes and your lungs and becomes part of you. Your wife stirs behind you, pulls the blanket tighter around the children, and you hear her shift onto her side. The baby doesn't wake. The baby never wakes for anything less than hunger or terror, and you're grateful for that small mercy. You pull on your trousers, woolen things that itch in ways you stopped noticing years ago, and your brat, the heavy wool cloak that serves as coat and blanket and occasionally pillow. Your feet find their way into the leather brogues, more whole than shoe at this point, and you lift the wooden bar that serves as your door's lock. The rain hits you immediately. Not hard, not driving, but persistent, the kind of rain that doesn't need force because it has all day, all week, all lifetime. It's the rain that made this island green and soft and wet, that carved the limestone into strange shapes in the Burren to the west, that fills the streams and soaks the bogs and gets into everything. You stand in it for a moment, letting it find your face, your neck, the gap where your brat doesn't quite close. You're already wet. You were always going to be wet. The trick is to stop minding. The field stretches out before you, gray in the gray light of early morning. You can just make out the line where the wall will go, a slightly darker seam through the grass, because that's where the stones are. Thousands of them. Millions of them. The glacier brought them here 10,000 years ago and left them scattered across this field like a giant's abandoned game. And every farmer since has been picking them up, stacking them, making something useful from something annoying. Your grandfather cleared this field of its largest stones and built the foundation of your house with them. Your father cleared more and built the sheep pen. Now it's your turn. And you're building a wall because you need to separate the good grazing from the rough grazing. Because the neighbor to the east has rights to the common pasture that end at this invisible line. Because this is what you do. You walk to the first stone. It's not the biggest. You'll save those for later. But it's the one you noticed yesterday. The one that seemed to be sitting slightly apart from the others, waiting. You crouch beside it, your knees popping in ways they shouldn't for a man your age, and you put your hands on its cold, wet surface. The lichen is soft under your fingers, green-gray and ancient, and you feel the tiny ridges and hollows that the rain has polished over centuries. This stone has been exactly here, in this spot, since before the first Christians set foot on this island. It's seen the Iron Age people who built the great forts, the monks who built their beehive huts, the Vikings who burned the monasteries. It's seen nothing and everything, and now you're going to move it. But not yet. First, you need to look at it. You need to understand it. Every stone has a grain, a direction it wants to lie, a shape that's been waiting for the exact position it will occupy in your wall. You turn it slightly, feeling its weight shift in the mud, and you see how it's flat on one side, rounded on the other. The flat side will face outward. The rounded side will go inside, into the heart of the wall, where no one will ever see it. This stone has been waiting 1,000,000 years to show you its flat face, and now you found it. The rain continues to fall. The light continues to grow, gray shifting to lighter gray. The sun somewhere behind the clouds doing its best. You straighten up and look along the line, imagining the wall that will stand here. Chest high, probably, wide enough at the base to be stable, tapering as it rises. It will take weeks. It will take months. It will take every bit of strength you have and more. And when it's done, it will look like it's always been there, like the ground grew it, like the stones arranged themselves while you weren't looking. That's the goal. That's always the goal. To build something that looks like it built itself. You walk back to the house, the rain still falling, the stones still waiting. Inside, your wife has the fire going properly now, and she's stirring something in the pot that smells like oats and maybe a bit of butter if you're lucky. The children are awake, the older ones already dressed and poking at the fire with sticks, the baby nursing at your wife's breast. You settle onto your stool by the hearth and hold your hands out to the flames, watching the steam rise from your sleeves, feeling the warmth creep back into your fingers. Today you begin. Today you dig the foundation trench. Today you move the first stone from its resting place of 10 millennia and set it on a new path. But first, you eat. You walk the field as dawn breaks, and the rain has finally stopped, though the clouds hang low and heavy, promising more before midday. The grass soaks your feet through the holes in your brogues, cold water finding the spaces between your toes, and you carry your breakfast with you. A piece of oatcake you tucked inside your brat, still warm from the hearth. You eat as you walk, chewing the dry, grainy mass, letting it soften with the moisture in your mouth because there's no time to sit and there's no point in waiting. The wall won't build itself. The field is roughly 10 acres, more or less, depending on who's measuring and whether they count the boggy bit at the bottom where nothing grows but rushes and regret. Your family has worked this land for as long as anyone remembers, which is to say about 3 generations back before the stories get vague and start involving giants or saints or both. The boundaries are marked by old walls, older than your grandfather's grandfather, walls that have slumped and settled and grown thick with moss and ferns and the small white flowers you've never learned the name of. Those walls are your teachers. They've been standing for 500 years, maybe more, and every stone in them is still exactly where the builder put it, held in place by nothing but gravity and patience and the careful fit of one rock against another. You stop at the place where your new wall will join the old one. It's a corner, a meeting of ancient and brand new. and you run your hand along the weathered stones of the existing wall. They are the same limestone as the ones scattered across your field, but they've been softened by centuries of rain and wind and the rubbing of sheep. The lichen on them is thick, almost furry, orange and gray and black in patterns that look like maps of places you'll never see. You press your palm against the wall and feel how solid it is, how unmoving, how it has become part of the ground itself. This is what you're trying to make. This is the standard. You turn back to your field and the scatter of stones that covers it like a rash. This is the thing about Irish ground. It grows rocks. Every spring, after the ploughing, there are more of them, as if the earth is pushing them up from below, giving birth to stone children that must be gathered and stacked and made useful. The glacier did that, dropped their load of broken rock across the whole island and then melted away, leaving behind a landscape that's half soil and half stone. In some places, like the Burren to the west, the stone won completely. Miles and miles of grey limestone pavement with plants growing in the cracks and not much else. You've heard stories of that place, how it's like walking on the back of a sleeping giant, how the rocks there are carved into strange shapes by water and time. You'll never see it. Your father never saw it. But you know it's there, and you know the stones in your field are cousins to those stones, born of the same ancient seabed, pushed up by the same ancient forces, scattered by the same ancient ice. You crouch beside a cluster of stones and begin to sort them with your eyes. This is the first real skill of wall building, learning to see what's in front of you. Not just rocks, but shapes, sizes, possibilities. That one there, the size of a sheep's head, rounded on top and flat on bottom. It wants to be a top stone, a capstone, something to finish a course and give the wall its final shape. That one, long and narrow, broken at one end. It might be a through stone, reaching from one face of the wall to the other, binding everything together. That one, massive and irregular, half buried in the grass. That's a foundation stone, the kind you'll need at the base, the kind that will require all your strength and maybe your neighbor's too if you can convince him to help. But the stones aren't just shapes. They have grain, just like wood, just like the planks you've seen in the rare English ships that sometimes put in at the coast. The grain in limestone is from its formation, layer upon layer of ancient sea creatures compressed over millions of years into solid rock. You can't see it, not exactly, but you can feel it when you run your hand across the surface. The stone has a direction it wants to be laid, a natural bedding plane that makes it strong when it's horizontal and weak when it's vertical. Lay it the wrong way and it will split, crack, fail, maybe years from now, maybe tomorrow, but fail it will. Lay it the right way and it will hold forever. Historians still argue whether the builders of the great stone forts like Dun Eong Hasa understood this grain in the same way modern masons do. Some say they must have, because those walls have stood for 3,000 years on the edge of cliffs, taking the full force of Atlantic storms without falling. Others say they just got lucky, that they picked stones that looked right and stacked them until they ran out. And the ones that survived are the ones we still see while the others collapsed into rubble long ago. You don't know which is true, and it doesn't matter. What matters is that you can feel it, this thing in the stone, this preference, and you're going to respect it. You stand and walk the line again, this time more slowly, pausing at each significant stone to mark it in your memory. The foundation trench will go here. A shallow cut into the earth, just deep enough to reach solid ground and give the wall something to bite into. You'll dig it by hand with a spade that your father used, that his father used, the wooden handle worn smooth and shaped to palms you never met. The turf you remove will go somewhere else, maybe to patch the roof, maybe to start a new compost heap, maybe just to fill a hole somewhere. Nothing is wasted here. Nothing can be wasted. You reach the far end of the line, where the wall will meet another old wall. This one marking the boundary with your neighbor to the west. His name is Seamus, and he's been farming his land for 50 years, since he was a boy smaller than your oldest. He remembers when your grandfather was alive, when this field was divided differently, when the stones that are now scattered were piled in heaps at the edges waiting for a wall that never got built. He'll watch you work. They'll all watch you work. Building a wall is a public act, something that happens in full view of everyone who passes, something that will be discussed and judged and remembered. But that's later. Right now, it's just you and the stones and the grey morning and the distant sound of a lark somewhere above the clouds. You finish your oatcake and lick the crumbs from your fingers, then crouch again, this time beside the first stone you noticed yesterday. You put your hands on it, feel its weight, its cold, its patience. Then you begin to rock it, gently at first, then harder, feeling the mud release its grip, feeling the stone shift in its bed of 10,000 years. It moves. Just a little. Just enough to tell you it can be moved. You rock it again. And this time you feel the suction break, the mud giving way, the stone tilting slightly in its hole. You work your fingers underneath, find the place where the stone meets the earth, and you pull. It's heavy. Heavier than you expected, heavier than it looked. But it's moving, coming up out of the ground with a wet sound like a boot pulled from mud. You stagger back, the stone in your arms, your legs wide to keep your balance. And for a moment you hold it against your chest like a child. This thing that's been in the earth since before your people came to this island. Then you set it down beside the line, exactly where the foundation trench will be, and you straighten up and breathe. The first stone has moved. The wall has begun. You look back at the hole it left, a dark wound in the grass, already filling with water. Something moved in there, a worm, maybe, or one of the small brown beetles that live under stones. And you watch it disappear into the grass, carrying on with its life as if nothing has changed. For you, everything has changed. The stone is out. The wall is starting. There's no going back now. The clouds are darkening to the west, and you can smell more rain on the wind. You have maybe an hour before it starts again. You walk back toward the house to fetch the spade. The digging begins. You eat your dry oatcake by the hearth while your hands remember yesterday's labor and anticipate today's punishment. The fire crackles low, fed by turf cut from the bog last summer, and the smoke finds its familiar path to the hole in the roof. Your wife moves around you, feeding the younger children, stirring something in the black pot that hangs from its chain, and the baby sleeps in his wooden cradle, wrapped in wool and oblivious to the world. You flex your fingers as you chew, feeling the stiffness in each joint, the places where the skin has already begun to thicken into callus and the places where it hasn't yet but will. The oatcake is dry and dense and takes a long time to work through. It's made from oats grown in this field, ground at the quernstone by your wife's hands, mixed with water and a pinch of salt and cooked on a flat stone by the fire. It's what you've eaten every morning of your life, what your father ate, what his father ate. Back to the first of your line who figured out that oats would grow in this wet ground when nothing else would. You sometimes wonder what they'd think of you, those ancestors, whether they'd recognize this life you're living. Probably they would. Probably nothing much has changed. You study your hands in the firelight. The palms are red from yesterday's work, the fingers swollen at the knuckles, the nails cracked and dirty. There's a blister forming at the base of your thumb, a small pocket of fluid that will burst today or tomorrow and turn into a callus if you're lucky or an infection if you're not. You've had both. You know the difference. You press the blister gently and feel the fluid shift. A small discomfort that will become a large one before the day is done. There's nothing to do about it. You can't stop working because of a blister. You can't wrap it because you have nothing to wrap it with. You just have to let it happen and trust your body to do what bodies do. The children watch you from across the fire. Your oldest, a boy of 7 with your wife's dark hair and your own habit of staring too long at things, is studying you with the intensity children reserve for parents who are about to do something interesting. He's been watching you prepare for this war for weeks, listening to the conversations about where it will go and how high it will be and whether the neighbor will share the work. He knows today you begin the real labor, the digging and lifting and placing, and he wants to come with you. You can see it in his eyes, that hunger to be part of something important. You don't invite him. He's too young still, too small for the weight of stones, too likely to get hurt or in the way. But you also don't tell him no. Not yet. You let the possibility hang there, unspoken. Because you remember being his age and watching your own father go out to the fields and wishing you could go too. One day he will. One day he'll be out there with you, learning the feel of stones, the rhythm of the work, the 1,000 small skills that can't be taught but only absorbed through years of doing. But not today. You finish the oatcake and wash it down with water from the wooden cup by the hearth. It's not enough. It's never enough. But it's what there is. You'll eat again at midday. More oatcake maybe, or a bit of cheese if any remains, or nothing if the children finished it while you weren't looking. That's the way of things. The workers eat after the children eat, and the women eat after the workers, and the old people eat after the women, and sometimes the old people don't eat much. You're young enough still to be near the front of that line, but you remember your grandmother in her last years, sitting by the fire with her bowl, pretending she wasn't hungry so there would be more for everyone else. You'll be her someday. That's the way of things too. Your wife comes to you with a piece of cloth, woolen, roughly the size of your hand. She kneels beside your stool and takes your hands in hers, turning them over, examining the blisters and the redness and the places where yesterday's work has left its marks. She doesn't say anything. There's nothing to say. She wraps the cloth around your worst hand, the right one, the one that does most of the lifting, and ties it with a strip of leather. It's not much. The cloth will soak through with moisture and dirt within an hour, will slip and bunch and become more nuisance than help. But it's something. It's her way of saying she sees you. She knows what this work costs. She'll do what she can. You squeeze her hand and stand. The fire has burned lower while you sat, and the light through the door has grown from gray to lighter gray. The rain has held off, for now, though the clouds are still thick and the air still heavy with the promise of more. You pull your brat tighter and lift the wooden bar from the door. Outside, the world is wet and quiet. The stones are still there, of course, scattered across the field exactly as you left them, except for the first one you moved, which sits beside the line where you placed it yesterday. You walk to it, your feet finding the path through the wet grass, and you stand looking at it for a long moment. It's just a rock. It's also the beginning of something that will outlast you, outlast your children, outlast perhaps your people if the stories are true about the English and their plans and the way they look at Irish land. But that's not now. Now is the digging. The spade is where you left it, leaning against the old wall at the corner. It's a simple thing, a wooden blade shod with iron, a long handle worn smooth by generations of hands, and it feels familiar in your grip, like an extension of your arm. You carry it to the line and drive it into the earth. The ground gives way with a soft sound, the blade slicing through turf and roots and the dark soil beneath. You lift the first sod and set it aside, then drive the spade in again. The rhythm begins immediately, the steady push and lift and turn of digging, the feel of the blade finding its way through the earth, the smell of freshly turned soil rising around you. It's good soil. This, not the richest in the valley, that belongs to the Anglo-Norman lord to the east, who took the best land generations ago and still holds it, but good enough. It's grown oats and barley and vegetables for your family for as long as anyone remembers. And it will do so for as long as anyone will remember. The wall will take a small strip of it, a line of stones a foot wide running the length of the field, but that's a small price to pay for the order the wall will bring. Historians still argue whether the ancient Irish, the ones who built the great ring forts and the monastic settlements, used spades like this or something simpler. Some say they had iron, always had iron, that the smiths of this island were as skilled as any in Europe. Others say iron was rare, precious, used mostly for weapons and jewelry, while farmers made do with wooden digging sticks and the strength of their backs. You don't know which is true, and you don't much care. You have iron on your spade, a thin strip along the blade that keeps it sharp and helps it cut through roots, and you're grateful for it. The trench grows as you dig. It doesn't need to be deep, just deep enough to reach solid ground, just deep enough to give the foundation stones something to bed into. In some places, where the soil is thin over rock, you barely scratch the surface. In others, where the ground is soft and wet, you dig down a foot or more, throwing the soil to the side, creating a channel that will hold the first course of stones. The work is monotonous and satisfying, the kind of work that lets your mind wander while your body does what bodies do. Your mind wanders to the stones. Which ones will go where? Which ones will need to be split? And how you'll manage that without the wedges and hammers you've heard about but never owned. Which ones will fight you, refuse your plans, demand to be placed differently than you intended. You've built walls before. Small ones, repairs to existing walls, the sheep pen behind the house, but never anything like this. Never a full field wall, a proper division, something that will be here forever. The trench reaches the first stone you moved, the one you lifted from its bed yesterday. You dig around it, clearing a space for it to sit, checking the level of the ground beneath. It's solid here, a layer of gravelly soil that will hold weight without shifting. Good. You position the stone in the trench, setting it roughly where it will go, and you step back to look. It's not right. It's tilted slightly, leaning to one side in a way that will throw off everything above it. You crouch and adjust it, lifting one end and packing soil underneath, then checking again. Better. Not perfect, but better. You'll come back to it later, after more stones are in place, after you can see how it relates to its neighbors. For now, it's enough that it's in the trench, that the first stone of the foundation is where it belongs. You straighten up and feel the blister on your thumb. It's burst, of course, the fluid soaking into the cloth your wife wrapped around your hand, leaving a raw patch of skin that stings with every movement. You look at it, then look at the trench stretching before you, then look at the sky, which has begun to darken again. More rain is coming. You have maybe an hour. You drive the spade into the earth and keep digging. You dig the first cut into earth that has held the same position since before your great-grandfather's great-grandfather drew breath. The spade moves in rhythm now, a steady push and lift and turn that your body has known since childhood, though you've never applied it quite like this before. Each cut removes a slice of turf, dark with moisture, threaded with the white roots of grass, and you lay these slices aside carefully because they'll go back later, tucked against the base of the finished wall to seal it, to make it look like the wall grew from the ground instead of being dropped onto it. The trench follows the line you walked yesterday, the line you've had in your mind for weeks. It's straight enough, straighter than anything in nature, which means it's obviously man-made, which is the point. A wall is a statement of ownership, of intention, of the human will imposed on the land. The old walls at the boundaries, the ones that have stood for centuries, they are not perfectly straight either. They wander slightly, adjusting to outcrops of rock and changes in soil and the limits of the men who built them. But they are straight enough. They say, "This is ours. This is the line." You dig and you think about lines, about boundaries, about the way this island has been divided and redivided since the first farmers scratched their first fields out of the forest. The old stories say there was a time before walls, when the whole island was common land and people moved with the seasons, following the cattle to the summer pastures and back again. You don't know if that's true. It seems like a long time ago, if it ever happened. What you know is the walls you grew up with, the ones that separate your family's land from the neighbors, the ones that keep the sheep in and the cattle out, the ones that have been here as long as anyone remembers. Your spade hits something and stops. Not rock. You'd recognize that feel. The jarring shock that runs up the handle and into your arms. This is different. Softer. You crouch and clear away the soil with your hands, your burst blister complaining at the contact, and you find what the spade found. It's bone. A long bone, curved slightly, too large for a sheep or a dog. You lift it carefully, feeling its weight, its age. It's old, older than the soil around it, older than the field, older perhaps than the walls that bound it. You turn it in your hands, this thing that was once part of something living, and you wonder what it was. Cow. Maybe. Or horse. Or something else. Something from the old days when this field was something else entirely. Historians still argue whether the fields of medieval Ireland were continuously farmed since the first Neolithic settlers or whether they were abandoned and reclaimed multiple times over the millennia. Some point to pollen records that show forests regrowing in some periods, then being cleared again. Others say the population never completely left, that there was always someone here, always someone farming this same soil, burying their dead in it, leaving their bones behind. You don't know which is true. All you know is that you're holding a bone that's been in this ground for a very long time, and now it's in your hand, and you have to decide what to do with it. You lay it aside, on a patch of grass where you won't step on it, where you can find it later. You'll show it to the priest, maybe, or to the old man who lives alone at the edge of the bog and claims to know the old stories. He might know what it is, what it means, whether it should be reburied or kept or something else entirely. For now, it's just a bone, and you have a trench to dig. You drive the spade in again and keep working. The trench deepens as you go. In some places it's shallow, just a few inches down to the hard-packed gravel that will support the weight of stones. In others it's deeper, the soil soft and dark and full of organic matter that will need to be removed or it will shift under the wall and cause it to settle unevenly. You dig deeper in those spots, removing the soft soil until you reach something solid. Then you'll fill the extra depth with small stones, packed tight, to create a stable base. That's the theory, anyway. You've never done this before on this scale. You're learning as you go, the way your father learned, the way his father learned, the way everyone learns who builds with stone. The trench reaches the first significant stone you identified yesterday, the one that will form part of the foundation. It's a big one, bigger than the others, maybe 200 pounds or more, and it's half buried in the grass exactly where you need it to be. This is the kind of luck you don't question, the kind that makes you wonder if the old gods are still watching, still helping, still involved in the small affairs of farmers. You dig around it, clearing the soil from its sides, exposing its shape, its size, its possibilities. It's roughly rectangular, flat on top and bottom, with one end that tapers slightly. It's perfect. It's as if it grew here specifically to be the cornerstone of your wall. You set down the spade and crouch beside it, running your hands over its surface. The lichen is thick on the top, orange and gray, the kind that grows slowly, that takes decades to cover a stone this size. This stone has been here a long time. It's been here through famines and festivals, through births and deaths, through the comings and goings of your family and the families before yours. It's been here through the Norman invasion, through the Viking raids, through the arrival of Christianity and the building of the first churches. It's been here through all of it, and now it's going to become part of a wall. But first, you have to move it. And moving a 200-pound stone by yourself, with nothing but your back and a wooden lever, is not a simple thing. You find a long stone nearby, one that's roughly the shape of a crowbar, and you bring it to the foundation stone. You work one end under the edge of the big stone, finding the gap between it and the soil, and you push down on the other end. The stone doesn't move. You push harder, putting your whole weight on the lever, and you feel it shift, just slightly, just enough to know it can be moved, but not enough to actually move it. You need more leverage. You need a better angle. You need, really, another person. But there is no other person. Your neighbor is working his own field. Your oldest is too young. Your wife is busy with the children and the house and the 1,000 things that keep a household running. It's just you and the stone and the lever and the slow, patient work of moving something that doesn't want to be moved. You try again, this with a different placement of the lever, closer to the stone's center of gravity. You push down, and this time the stone lifts, just an inch, just enough to slide a smaller stone underneath, and you hold it there, trembling with the effort, until you can kick the small stone into place. Then you let the big stone down onto its new bed, and you rest, breathing hard, feeling the strain in your back and arms and legs. It's going to take a long time to move this stone into its final position. A very long time. But you have time. The wall isn't going anywhere. The stone isn't going anywhere. You're the only thing moving in this equation. And you're moving slowly, deliberately, the way stones move when they're being built into something permanent. You work the lever again, lifting the stone another inch, sliding another small stone underneath. Then again. Then again. Each lift moves the stone forward a few inches, brings it closer to its place in the trench, builds a platform of small stones that will eventually support it at the right height. It's tedious work, frustrating work, the kind of work that makes you question every decision that led you to this moment. But it's also satisfying, in a way that's hard to explain. You're moving something that doesn't want to be moved. You're imposing your will on the world. You're making a change that will last. The clouds have been building while you worked, and now the first drops of rain hit your face. You look up and see the sky darkening to the west, the rain sweeping toward you across the valley, and you know you have maybe 10 minutes before it arrives in earnest. You look at the stone, still not in its final position, still needing another few lifts to reach the trench. You look at the sky. You look at the stone again. You keep working. The rain comes harder, faster, soaking through your brat in seconds, running down your face and into your eyes. The stone becomes slick under your hands, harder to grip, harder to control. The lever slips once, nearly sending you sprawling, and you curse under your breath and reset it and keep going. The stone moves. Another inch. Another. You can see the trench now, the edge of it, the place where this stone will sit for the next 1,000 years. You're almost there. Another lift, another slide, and the stone drops into the trench with a wet thud that sends mud splashing up your legs. It's in. It's not perfectly positioned. It's tilted slightly, one corner higher than the others, but it's in the trench, and that's enough for now. You can adjust it later, after the rain stops, after you've rested, after you've done the 1,000 other things that need doing before this wall is finished. You stand there in the rain, breathing hard, your hands on your knees, and you look at the stone. It's in the ground now. It's the first stone of the foundation, the first permanent thing in this wall, the beginning of something that will outlast you. You feel something shift inside you, some recognition that this matters, that what you're doing here is real, is important, is worthy of the effort it's taking. Then the rain really starts, and you run for the shelter of the old wall. And you huddle there with your brat pulled over your head, and you wait for it to pass. You crouch among the scatter and learn to read each rock's hidden grain, its secrets, its preferred orientation in the wall. The rain has passed, leaving the world washed and gleaming, each stone polished to a wet sheen that shows their colors as you've never seen them. Grays and blues and hints of brown, streaks of white where quartz runs through the limestone like veins in an old man's hands. You run your fingers over one, feeling the tiny fossils embedded in its surface, the shells of creatures that lived in a sea that covered this place 300 million years ago. And you wonder what they'd think if they could see themselves now, being sorted for a wall in a world they could never have imagined. The foundation trench stretches before you, a raw gash in the green field. And along its length you've placed the stones you moved yesterday and the day before. They sit there like patient animals, waiting for their final positions, waiting for the smaller stones that will chink them into place, waiting for the wall to rise around them. But before you can build upward, you need to finish the foundation course. And before you can do that, you need to select the right stones for each position. This is where the real skill begins. Anyone can dig a trench. Anyone can move stones from the field into the trench. But not everyone can look at a pile of rocks and see the wall that's hidden inside them. That's what you're learning now, crouching in the wet grass, studying the scatter of limestone that covers this field like a stony harvest. You start with the biggest stones, the ones that will form the base course. These need to be the heaviest, the most stable, the ones with the flattest tops and bottoms. They need to sit in the trench without rocking, without shifting, without giving any hint that they might move in the future. You walk along the line, looking at each stone you've already placed, and you begin to see the problems. This one here, the big one you struggled with yesterday, it's not quite level. You can see the gap between its bottom and the soil, a space where water will collect, where frost will form, where the stone might shift when the ground freezes and thaws. You need to fix that. You fetch your lever and a collection of small, flat stones, and you begin the slow work of adjusting. You slide the lever under the edge of the big stone and lift, just enough to create a gap. Then you reach underneath with your free hand, feeling for the low spot, the place where the stone isn't making contact with the ground. Your fingers find it, a hollow in the soil, a depression that's causing the stone to tilt. You slide a small flat stone into the gap, then another, building up the low spot until the stone rests evenly on its bed. You release the lever and check. Better. Not perfect, but better. You'll check again tomorrow, after the stone has settled, after the ground has had time to accept its new burden. You move to the next stone, and the next, making small adjustments, building up low spots, digging out high spots, creating a level foundation for the courses to come. It's slow work, meticulous work, the kind of work that would drive some men mad with boredom. But you find a rhythm in it, a meditation, a way of being present with each stone, each adjustment, each small victory over imperfection. Historians still argue whether the builders of the great stone monuments, the passage tombs at Newgrange, the oratories at Gallerus, used levels and plumb lines or relied entirely on their eyes. Some say they must have had tools, must have measured and calculated, because the precision of those buildings is too exact to be accidental. Others say the eye is enough, that a skilled builder can see level, can feel plumb, can know when a stone is right without any tool to confirm it. You don't have a level. You've never seen one. You have your eyes and your hands and the memory of walls your father built that are still standing. And that's enough. The morning passes in this slow dance of selection and adjustment. You work your way along the trench, choosing stones from the piles you've gathered, placing them in the foundation, adjusting them until they're right. Each stone has its own personality, its own preferences, its own idea of where it wants to be. Some are cooperative, settling into place as if they've been waiting for this exact spot their whole existence. Others are stubborn, refusing to lie flat no matter how you adjust them, forcing you to try different orientations, different positions, until finally you find the one they've been demanding all along. You learn to listen to them, these stones. You learn that the flat side wants to face outward, that the rough side wants to face inward, that the grain wants to run horizontal because that's how it formed, that's how it's strongest. You learn that some stones are liars, presenting a flat face that's only an inch deep, hiding a lumpy back that will throw off the entire course. You learn to look at a stone from all sides before you commit, to turn it in your hands, to understand its true shape beneath the deception of its surface. You crouch among the scatter and learn to read each rock's hidden grain, its secrets, its preferred orientation in the wall. The rain has passed, leaving the world washed and gleaming, each stone polished to a wet sheen that shows their colors as you've never seen them. Grays and blues and hints of brown, streaks of white where quartz runs through the limestone like veins in an old man's hands. You run your fingers over one, feeling the tiny fossils embedded in its surface, the shells of creatures that lived in a sea that covered this place 300 million years ago. And you wonder what they'd think if they could see themselves now, being sorted for a wall in a world they could never have imagined. The foundation trench stretches before you, a raw gash in the green field, and along its length you've placed the stones you moved yesterday and the day before. They sit there like patient animals, waiting for their final positions, waiting for the smaller stones that will chink them into place, waiting for the wall to rise around them. But before you can build upward, you need to finish the foundation course. And before you can do that, you need to select the right stones for each position. This is where the real skill begins. Anyone can dig a trench. Anyone can move stones from the field into the trench. But not everyone can look at a pile of rocks and see the wall that's hidden inside them. That's what you're learning now, crouching in the wet grass, studying the scatter of limestone that covers this field like a stony harvest. You start with the biggest stones, the ones that will form the base course. These need to be the heaviest, the most stable, the ones with the flattest tops and bottoms. They need to sit in the trench without rocking, without shifting, without giving any hint that they might move in the future. You walk along the line, looking at each stone you've already placed, and you begin to see the problems. This one here, the big one you struggled with yesterday, it's not quite level. You can see the gap between its bottom and the soil, a space where water will collect, where frost will form, where the stone might shift when the ground freezes and thaws. You need to fix that. You fetch your lever and a collection of small, flat stones, and you begin the slow work of adjusting. You slide the lever under the edge of the big stone and lift, just enough to create a gap. Then you reach underneath with your free hand, feeling for the low spot, the place where the stone isn't making contact with the ground. Your fingers find it, a hollow in the soil, a depression that's causing the stone to tilt. You slide a small flat stone into the gap, then another, building up the low spot until the stone rests evenly on its bed. You release the lever and check. Better. Not perfect, but better. You'll check again tomorrow, after the stone has settled, after the ground has had time to accept its new burden. You move to the next stone, and the next, making small adjustments, building up low spots, digging out high spots, creating a level foundation for the courses to come. It's slow work, meticulous work, the kind of work that would drive some men mad with boredom. But you find a rhythm in it, a meditation, a way of being present with each stone, each adjustment, each small victory over imperfection. Historians still argue whether the builders of the great stone monuments, the passage tombs at Newgrange, the oratories at Gallerus, used levels and plumb lines or relied entirely on their eyes. Some say they must have had tools, must have measured and calculated, because the precision of those buildings is too exact to be accidental. Others say the eye is enough, that a skilled builder can see level, can feel plumb, can know when a stone is right without any tool to confirm it. You don't have a level. You've never seen one. You have your eyes and your hands and the memory of walls your father built that are still standing. And that's enough. The morning passes in this slow dance of selection and adjustment. You work your way along the trench, choosing stones from the piles you've gathered, placing them in the foundation, adjusting them until they're right. Each stone has its own personality, its own preferences, its own idea of where it wants to be. Some are cooperative, settling into place as if they've been waiting for this exact spot their whole existence. Others are stubborn, refusing to lie flat no matter how you adjust them, forcing you to try different orientations, different positions, until finally you find the one they've been demanding all along. You learn to listen to them, these stones. You learn that the flat side wants to face outward, that the rough side wants to face inward, that the grain wants to run horizontal because that's how it formed, that's how it's strongest. You learn that some stones are liars, presenting a flat face that's only an inch deep, hiding a lumpy back that will throw off the entire course. You learn to look at a stone from all sides before you commit, to turn it in your hands, to understand its true shape beneath the deception of its surface. You hoist the first long stone across the trench and feel the wall begin to breathe, connecting one face to the other. It's a different kind of stone from the ones you've been placing, longer and narrower, shaped roughly like a loaf of bread that's been stretched by an over-enthusiastic baker. You found it yesterday, half buried near the old wall, and you recognized it immediately for what it was. A through stone waiting to be used again. A stone that had spent centuries in another wall before that wall collapsed or was robbed for other building. It's got the marks on it, the wear patterns that only come from being stacked with other stones, the lichen growing only on the faces that were exposed to air while the buried parts stayed clean. This stone has history. This stone has been here before. You carry it to the wall. And yes, you're starting to think of it as a wall now, not just a collection of stones in a trench, and you lay it across the two faces, spanning the gap between them. The wall at this point is only one course high, just the foundation stones sitting in their trench, but you can already see the two faces emerging, the inner and outer layers that will define the wall's structure. The through stone rests on both, its ends extending slightly beyond each face, and you step back to look at it. This is the moment. This is when a pile of rocks becomes a wall. Because a dry stone wall isn't just two lines of stone stacked separately. It's a single structure, held together by the interlocking of its parts, and the through stones are the bones that make that interlocking possible. They tie the faces together, prevent them from spreading apart under the weight of the stones above, give the wall its strength, its integrity, its ability to stand for centuries. Without through stones, a dry stone wall is just two thin walls leaning against each other, and it will fail. With them, it's one thing, a single organism made of stone. You adjust the through stone slightly, tapping it with a smaller stone to shift it into position. It needs to be level, needs to sit flat on both faces, needs to have its weight distributed evenly so it doesn't create stress points that could cause cracking later. You check it from one end, then the other, then from above, sighting along its length to make sure it's straight. It's not perfect, no stone ever is, but it's close enough. Close enough to do its job for the next 1,000 years. Historians still argue whether the builders of the great dry stone structures understood the engineering principles behind through stones or simply learned by trial and error what worked. Some say they must have had a theoretical understanding, because the through stones in ancient walls are placed with such precision, at such regular intervals, that it can't be accidental. Others say theory doesn't matter, That generations of builders simply copied what they saw working and avoided what they saw failing. And that's how knowledge passes. Not through books or calculations, but through hands and eyes and the slow accumulation of experience. You don't know which is right. All you know is that your father taught you to put through stones every few feet, to make them long enough to reach well into both faces, to choose them carefully because a bad through stone is worse than none at all. You move along the wall, placing more through stones at intervals. Every 3 feet or so, roughly, though you adjust based on the stones you have and the shape of the wall at each point. Some of the through stones are new, freshly dug from the field, their surfaces sharp and clean. Others are reused, like the first one, carrying the marks of previous walls, previous builders, previous centuries. You wonder about those builders sometimes, who they were, what they thought about as they worked, whether they ever imagined someone like you picking up their stones and using them again. Probably not. Probably they just built their walls and went home and lived their lives, the same as you're doing now. The work changes as you add through stones. Before, you were building 2 separate faces, stacking stones on the outer edges of the trench and filling the gap between them with smaller stones. Now, with through stones spanning the gap, the faces become connected, dependent on each other. A stone placed on the outer face now rests not just on the stones below it but also on the through stones that tie it to the inner face. The whole structure becomes more rigid, more stable, more permanent. You find a rhythm in this work, a flow that carries you along the wall. Place a through stone. Build the faces up around it, choosing stones that fit against its ends, that lock into its shape, that continue the lines of the wall on either side. Add smaller stones in the gap, packing them tight, creating a solid core that will support the weight above. Then move to the next through stone and do it again. The wall grows slowly, inch by inch, stone by stone, but it grows. The sun appears again, briefly, and you feel its warmth on your back. You pause for a moment, looking at the wall, and you realize that it's starting to look like something. Not just a pile of rocks, not just a line of stones, but a wall. You can see the 2 faces now, the careful selection of stones that creates a flat surface on each side. You can see the through stones reaching across, binding everything together. You can see the shape of it, the slight inward slope that will become more pronounced as you build higher, the batter that gives dry stone walls their stability. You think about the people who will see this wall. Your neighbor, who'll study it every time he passes, judging your work, comparing it to his own. Your children, who'll play beside it, climb on it, learn from it. Your grandchildren, who'll maintain it, repair it, add to it. And beyond them, the generations you'll never meet. The people who'll live on this land centuries from now, who'll lean against this wall on a summer evening and never once think about the man who built it. That's the strange thing about building with stone. You're not building for yourself. You're building for people who don't exist yet, for a future you'll never see. The thought doesn't depress you. It's just a fact, like the weight of a stone or the wetness of rain. You accept it and keep working. In the afternoon, you encounter a problem. You're placing a through stone, a good one, long and straight, when you realize that it doesn't quite reach the inner face. It's close, within an inch, but close isn't enough. A through stone needs to bear on both faces, needs to have its weight distributed evenly, needs to actually do the job of tying the wall together. This one, if you place it as is, will only reach the fill stones in the gap, not the inner face itself. It won't be a through stone at all. It'll be a decorative stone, a pretend through stone, useless and possibly harmful. You stop and look at it, this stone that seemed so perfect when you found it. You could force it. You could build the inner face out slightly, Create a bump in the wall that would accommodate the stone's shortness. But that bump would be a weak point, a place where the wall isn't straight, where future builders would have to work around your mistake. You could cut the stone, but you don't have the tools for that. And even if you did, cutting a through stone short defeats its purpose. You could abandon it, find another stone, use this one for something else. You set it aside. Not in the rejection pile, it's too good for that, but in a separate pile, a pile of stones that might work later, in a different part of the wall, where the distances are different. You'll find a use for it eventually. Everything gets used eventually. You find another through stone, longer this time, and you place it successfully. The wall continues. As the light begins to fade, you stand back and look at what you've accomplished. The wall is perhaps 2 feet high now along most of its length, with through stones at regular intervals. The face is beginning to show the careful selection of stones that will define its character. It's not finished, it's barely started, but it's a wall. It's a real, actual wall, doing what walls do. You walk along it, running your hand along the stones you've placed. Some are warm from the brief sun, others cool and damp. Each has its own texture, its own voice under your fingers. You feel the through stones, buried in the wall's heart, doing their silent work. You feel the faces, already beginning to weather, already beginning to look like they've been here longer than a few days. At the end of the wall, you stop and turn and look back along its length. The light is going fast now. The western sky showing a thin line of orange beneath the clouds. The wall is a dark line against the gray-green field, a line that wasn't there a week ago, a line that will be here forever. You walk home in the gathering dusk, your body aching, your hands raw, your mind full of stones. Tomorrow you'll build higher. Tomorrow you'll place more through stones, more facing stones, more of the endless small decisions that turn a pile of rocks into a wall. But for tonight, the wall is what it is, and what it is enough. You step back and squint along the wall's slight inward slope, trusting angles you cannot measure with anything but your eye. The wall has grown now, waist-high in places, and as you walk its length you can see the subtle taper, the way each course sits slightly inside the one below it, so that the wall is wider at the bottom than at the top. This is the batter, and it's the thing that keeps dry stone walls standing when wet stone walls would crack and fall. Without it, the wall would eventually bulge and collapse under its own weight, the stones pushing outward until there's nothing holding them in place. With it, gravity becomes an ally, pulling the stones together, pressing them into each other, making the wall stronger with every passing year. You learned about batter from your father, who learned it from his father, and so on back to the first builder in your line who figured out that walls fall down less often if you lean them inward slightly. It's not a thing you can measure precisely. You don't have levels or plumb lines, and even if you did, you're not sure you'd trust them over your own eye. Instead, you judge by looking, by stepping back and sighting along the wall, by feeling the angle as you place each stone. You know it's right when it looks right, when the wall seems to settle into itself, when you can imagine it standing through storms and centuries without complaint. You're at a section now where the batter doesn't look right. It's subtle. Someone who didn't build walls probably wouldn't notice, but you notice. The wall here is leaning out slightly instead of in, just a degree or two, just enough to catch your eye and make you uneasy. You stop and study it, trying to understand how it happened. The stones here are good ones, carefully chosen, well placed. The through stones are doing their job. But something is wrong. You trace it back, stone by stone, and you find the culprit. It's a facing stone about 3 courses down, a stone you placed yesterday, a stone you thought was perfect for this spot. It's slightly wedge-shaped, thicker at the bottom than at the top, And as you built on top of it, each subsequent stone followed that wedge, leaning out a little more with each course. By the time you reached the top of this section, the batter had reversed completely. The wall here is trying to fall outward. You have a decision to make. You can leave it and hope it settles. Hope the weight of the stones above somehow corrects the angle. Hope that your eye is wrong and the wall is actually fine. Or you can take it apart and rebuild it, course by course, fixing the mistake before it becomes permanent. You start taking it apart. It's slow work, careful work, lifting each stone and setting it aside in order so you can rebuild correctly. You work from the top down, removing the stones you placed today, then yesterday's, until you reach the wedge-shaped culprit. You lift it out and hold it in your hands, this stone that looked so right and was so wrong. And you understand now what you missed. The flat face that seemed so perfect for the wall's exterior was a lie. Behind that flat face, the stone was thick and uneven, forcing every stone above it to tilt. You should have seen it. You didn't. You set the stone aside, not in the rejection pile but in a separate pile. A pile of stones that might work in the heart of the wall where their shape won't matter as much. Then you begin to rebuild, this time choosing your stones more carefully, checking each one not just for its face but for its back, its shape, its effect on the stones above it. Historians still argue whether the builders of the great Irish round towers understood the mathematics of batter or simply developed an intuitive sense over generations of building. Some say the tower's precise angles, typically about 1 inch of taper per foot of height, must have been calculated, must have been based on some understanding of physics that was written down and passed on. Others say intuition is enough, that a builder who's spent 40 years watching walls stand and fall can feel the right angle in his bones, can see it in the way light falls on a surface, can know it without ever measuring. You don't know which is true. All you know is that you're rebuilding this section by feel, by eye, by the same intuition that guided your father and his father before him. The rebuilding goes faster than the taking apart. You've learned something now, about this section of wall, about the stones that belong here, about the angle they want to take. You place each stone carefully, checking its effect on the batter, adjusting with small stones behind it to change its tilt, building slowly toward the height you'd already reached. By the time you're done, the sun has moved noticeably across the sky, and you're tired and hungry and frustrated by the lost time. But the wall is right now. You step back and sight along it, and the batter is perfect, that slight inward slope that says this wall will stand. You walk to the other end and sight back, and it's still perfect. You run your hand along the stones, feeling the angle, the way the wall seems to lean into itself, and you know it's good. You think about the old walls, the ones that have stood for centuries, and you wonder how many times their builders had to take sections apart and rebuild them. Probably often. Probably every wall has its stories of mistakes made and corrected, of stones that looked right and were wrong, of hours spent fixing what should have been done right the first time. That's the thing about building with stone. There's no rushing it. The stones won't be rushed. They'll wait as long as it takes for you to get it right. And if you don't get it right, they'll let you know, eventually, by falling down. You eat your midday meal sitting on the completed section. You're back against the wall you just rebuilt. The stone is cool through your brat, solid and unmoving, and you feel the batter pressing against your spine, the slight inward angle that makes the wall feel almost like it's embracing you. You chew your oatcake and watch the clouds move across the sky and think about nothing in particular. Your neighbor appears at the edge of the field, walking along the old wall that marks your boundary. He's an old man, older than your father would be if he were still alive, and he moves slowly, carefully, picking his way over the uneven ground. You watch him approach, wondering what he wants. He doesn't often visit. When he does, it's usually to complain about something, a stray sheep, a gap in the boundary wall, some imagined slight from years ago that he's never quite forgotten. He reaches you and stops, looking at your wall. He doesn't say anything for a long moment, just stands there studying it, his old eyes running along the stones, taking in the batter, the through stones, the careful selection of facing stones. You wait, not sure whether to speak, not sure what he's thinking. Finally, he nods. Just once, a small movement of his head. Then he turns and walks away, back along the old wall, disappearing the way he came. You watch him go, and you feel something shift inside you. That nod, it's the closest thing to approval you'll ever get from him, from anyone, really. It means your wall is good. It means the old man, who's been looking at walls for 70 years, thinks your work is worthy. It means something. You finish your oatcake and stand up, brushing the crumbs from your brat. The afternoon is half gone, and there's still work to do. You walk to the next section of wall, the part that still needs to be built up to match the height you've already reached, and you begin again. The batter here is right. You checked it this morning, before you found the problem section, so you can build straight onto what's already there. You select a stone from the pile, a good facing stone with a flat front and a shape that will fit against its neighbors, and you place it on the wall. It settles into place with a soft thunk, finding its bed among the stones below, and you check its angle by eye, by feel, by the same intuition that guided your rebuilding. It's right. You move to the next stone. The work continues. The wall grows. The batter holds. As the light begins to fade, you finish the section you were working on and step back to look at the whole wall. It's uneven still, some parts higher than others, some sections waiting for stones you haven't found yet, but the line of it is clear, and the batter is consistent along its entire length. The wall leans inward, just slightly, just enough, and in that lean you can see its future. You can see it standing through winter storms, through spring rains, through the slow settling of centuries. You can see it becoming one of the old walls, the ones that look like they grew from the ground, the ones that have been here forever. You walk home in the gathering dark, your body aching, your hands raw, your mind full of angles and stones and the memory of an old man's nod. Tomorrow you'll build higher still, adding course after course until the wall reaches its full height. But for tonight, the wall is what it is, and what it is standing. You pack the small stones into the cavity, hearing them chatter against each other as they settle into their eternal positions. The wall has grown now, waist-high along most of its length, and as you've built the two faces higher, a gap has opened between them, a long, narrow cavity that runs the entire length of the wall, waiting to be filled. This is the heart of the wall, the part no one will ever see, the part that will determine whether the wall stands for 100 years or 1,000. You can build the most beautiful faces in Ireland, choose the most perfect through stones, get the batter exactly right, and if you fill the heart poorly, the wall will fail. It will bulge and shift and eventually collapse, all because of stones no one will ever look at. You kneel beside the wall and reach into the cavity, feeling the space between the faces. It's wider in some places, narrower in others, depending on the shapes of the facing stones and the way they've been placed. Your job now is to fill every gap, every void, every empty space with small stones, packing them tight so that the weight above is distributed evenly and the faces are supported from behind. It's tedious work, fussy work, the kind of work that would drive some men mad with its repetitiveness. But you've learned to find a rhythm in it, a meditation, a way of being present with each small stone, each tiny decision about where it should go. You start with a handful of small stones, the ones you've been collecting as you worked, the chips and fragments and odd-shaped pieces that aren't big enough for the faces but are too useful to waste. You feed them into the cavity one by one, placing them carefully, making sure they don't create voids or gaps that will cause problems later. Some of them you can drop in from above, listening to them clatter down into the darkness. Others you have to push in from the side, working them into place with your fingers, feeling for the spot where they'll fit tight and stay put. The stones talk to you as you work, not in words, but in sounds. The click of one stone against another, the grinding as you twist a stone into place, the solid thunk when a stone finds its bed and settles. You learn to read these sounds, to know by ear whether a stone is seated properly or whether it's loose and will need to be adjusted. A well-placed heartstone makes a sound like a door closing, solid and final. A poorly placed one rattles, shifts, complains, and you have to take it out and try again. Historians still argue whether the heart of a dry stone wall was considered structural or simply filling. Some say the small stones are just there to take up space, that the real strength comes from the faces and through stones, and the heart could be anything: rubble, soil, even nothing at all. Others say the heart is essential, that a properly packed heart distributes weight, prevents movement, and gives the wall its solidity, its permanence. You know which is true, because you've seen walls that were built with poorly packed hearts, walls that bulged and slumped and eventually fell, their beautiful faces lying in heaps while the heart stones scattered across the field. The heart matters. The heart matters a great deal. You work your way along the wall, section by section, filling the cavity as you go. It's slow work, much slower than building the faces, because each stone has to be considered, each placement has to be right. You can't just dump a load of small stones into the cavity and hope for the best. They have to be placed, layered, packed, so that they lock together and against the faces, creating a solid mass that will support everything above. In some places, the cavity is wide enough that you can reach in with both hands, placing stones deep inside, building up the heart in courses just like the faces. In other places, it's narrow, barely wide enough for your fingers, and you have to work small stones in from the top, dropping them and then adjusting them with a stick or a piece of wire. You have a stick for this purpose, a straight piece of hazel you cut from the hedge, and you use it to poke and prod the stones into position, feeling for tightness, for solidity, for the right fit. The work is absorbing in a way that building the faces isn't. With the faces, you're always aware of how the wall looks, how it will be seen, how it will be judged. With the heart, there's no judgment. No one will ever see this. No one will ever know whether you did it well or poorly, except through the wall's survival. It's just you and the stones and the darkness between the faces, working together to create something permanent. You think about the old walls as you work, the ones that have stood for centuries, and you wonder about the hearts of those walls. Are they packed as carefully as you're packing this one? Or did the old builders take shortcuts, knowing that the faces would hide their sins? You'll never know. The only way to see the heart of a wall is to take it apart. And no one's going to do that to a wall that stood for 500 years. Your son appears again, this time with water. He stands at the edge of the field, holding a wooden cup, watching you work. You wave him over, and he picks his way through the stones, his small feet finding paths you barely notice anymore. He reaches you and holds out the cup, and you take it and drink deeply. The water is cool and clean, drawn from the well this morning, and it tastes better than anything you've ever drunk. You hand the cup back and he stands there, watching you, waiting. You can see he wants to help, wants to be part of this thing you're building. You look at his small hands, his thin arms, and you know he's not ready for the heavy work of the faces. But the heart is different. The heart needs small stones and small hands. You reach into the pile of hearting material and select a stone, a small one, smooth and flat, the kind that will fit easily into the cavity. You hand it to your son and show him where to put it. Into a gap you've been working on. A place where the heart needs just one more stone to be complete. He takes it carefully, studying it the way you've taught him to study stones, and then he reaches into the cavity and places it where you showed him. It fits. Of course it fits. You chose it for that spot. But he doesn't know that. To him, it's a miracle. A stone that exactly fills a gap, that clicks into place and stays there. His face lights up with a smile you don't see often enough. A smile that makes all the work worth it. You hand him another stone, and another, and he places them all, each one finding its spot, each one becoming part of the wall's hidden heart. He works slowly, carefully, the way you've taught him. And you watch him and feel something shift inside you. This wall isn't just for the future anymore. It's for him. It's something you're building together, something he'll remember when you're gone, something he'll show his own children and tell them about the day he helped his father build a wall. The afternoon passes in this shared work, father and son filling the heart of the wall, stone by stone. You talk a little about the stones, about the wall, about nothing in particular, but mostly you work in silence, the comfortable silence of people who don't need words to be together. The wall grows, not in height but in solidity, in weight, in permanence. The heart fills. When the light begins to fade, you send him back to the house with the empty cup, and you watch him run through the grass, his small figure growing smaller until it disappears through the door. Then you turn back to the wall and run your hand along its length, feeling the solidity of it, the weight of it, the way it doesn't move at all when you push against it. The heart is full now, in this section at least, and the wall feels different, denser, more permanent, more like a thing that will last. You think about the stones in the heart, the ones no one will ever see, and you think about your son's hands placing them. Those stones will be there forever, or as close to forever as anything in this world gets. Long after you're gone, long after your son is gone, long after everyone you know is dust, those stones will still be there, in the heart of this wall, holding it together. And no one will ever know that a 7-year-old boy placed them there, on an afternoon in late summer, while his father watched and felt something he couldn't name. That's the thing about building with stone. You're not just building for yourself. You're building for all the moments that will come after, all the lives that will touch this wall, all the hands that will run along its surface and feel the work of hands long gone. You're building for your son, and his son, and his son's son, and for all the people you'll never meet who will lean against this wall on summer evenings and never once think about who built it. And that's enough. That's more than enough. You walk home in the gathering dark, your body aching, your hands raw, your heart full of stones and the memory of your son's smile. Tomorrow you'll build higher still, add more courses to the faces, fill more heart, place more through stones. But tonight, the wall is what it is, and what it is solid. You find the wall's pulse as stone follows stone, your body moving before your mind decides, the work becoming meditation. It's happened gradually, over the days and weeks of building, this shift from conscious effort to something else, something deeper. At first, every stone was a decision. Which one to use, where to put it, how to fit it against its neighbors. You had to think about everything, calculate every angle, second-guess every choice. Now, your hands seem to know what to do before your brain catches up. You reach for a stone and it's the right one, the one you need, even though you didn't know you needed it until your fingers closed around it. You place it on the wall and it fits, settles, locks into place as if it's been waiting for this exact spot since the glacier left it here 10,000 years ago. You're in the flow now, the state that athletes and musicians talk about, where time slows down and speeds up simultaneously. where the work does itself and you're just along for the ride. The wall has reached chest height along most of its length, and you're adding the final courses, the ones that will bring it to its full height. The stones are smaller now, easier to lift, but they require more care, more precision. Because the top of the wall is where everything comes together, where the batter meets the capstones, where the wall's character is finally revealed. You move along the wall in a rhythm that feels almost like dancing. Select a stone. Lift it. Turn it in your hands, feeling its weight, its balance, its hidden grain. Place it on the wall. Tap it with your palm to settle it. Check it by eye, by feel, by some internal sense you can't name. Then move to the next stone, and the next, and the next. The pile beside the wall shrinks. The wall grows. The rhythm continues. Your body has changed during this work. You're leaner than you were when you started. The layer of winter fat burned away by weeks of lifting and carrying and bending. Your arms are thicker, your shoulders broader, your hands transformed into something that looks more like tools than flesh. The calluses are thick now, almost like armor. And the blisters have stopped coming because your skin has learned what it needs to do. You move differently too, more slowly, more deliberately, with an economy of motion that comes from doing the same thing thousands of times. You waste nothing now. Every movement has a purpose. The wall has changed too. It's no longer just a pile of rocks in a trench. It's a thing, a structure, a presence in the landscape. It has weight and solidity and a kind of personality that's emerged from the thousands of decisions you've made while building it. In some places it's almost severe, the stones chosen for their straight lines and sharp angles. In others it's softer, rounder, more organic, the stones flowing into each other like water. These differences weren't planned, they just happened, emerging from the stones themselves, from the way they wanted to be placed, from the mood you were in on the days you built each section. Historians still argue whether the builders of ancient walls intended these variations or whether they are simply the result of different materials, different tools, different hands. Some say the variations are meaningful, that they reflect different building traditions, different cultural preferences, different ideas about what a wall should be. Others say they are accidental, that builders used whatever stones were available and built them however they fit. And the variations we see now are just the result of chance and time. You don't know which is true. All you know is that your wall has variations, and you didn't plan them, but you don't regret them either. The rhythm carries you along the wall, section by section. You're not thinking about the past or the future anymore. You're not thinking about anything, really. You're just present, in this moment, with these stones, doing this work. The world narrows to the wall in front of you, the stone in your hand, the fit you're trying to achieve. Everything else, the worries about food and rent and the English and their plans, fades into background noise, unimportant, unreal. This is why people build walls, you realize. Not for the wall itself, but for this feeling, this peace, this clarity, this moment when the world falls away and there's nothing left but you and the stones and the slow, rhythmic work of making something permanent. This is what your father felt, what his father felt, what all the builders before you felt as they raised the walls that still stand. This is the gift of the work, the thing that makes the blisters and the back pain and the frustration worth it. You come to a section where the rhythm breaks. There's a gap, a place where the stones don't want to fit, where nothing you try seems to work. You try a dozen stones, each one wrong. You try turning them different ways, shifting them, forcing them. Nothing works. The rhythm is gone, replaced by frustration, by the old familiar feeling of fighting the stones instead of working with them. You stop. You step back. You breathe. The wall here is telling you something. You realize. It's telling you that you're trying to do something that can't be done. That you're forcing an outcome that the stones don't want. You look at the gap differently now. Not as a problem to be solved, but as a shape to be filled. What kind of stone would fill this shape? What orientation? What size? You walk away from the wall, leaving the gap behind, and you search the piles for a stone you haven't tried yet. You find one, half buried under others, a stone you overlooked because it's not particularly beautiful, not particularly promising. But as you lift it, as you turn it in your hands, you see that it might work. It's the right shape, roughly, approximately, and it might fit if you place it just so. You carry it back to the wall and offer it to the gap. It fits. Not perfectly. There are still spaces around it, still adjustments to be made, but it fits. It settles into place with a solid thunk, and the gap is filled, and the rhythm returns. You work on, placing stone after stone, the gap forgotten, the rhythm carrying you forward. The sun moves across the sky, but you don't notice. Your stomach growls, but you don't hear it. You're somewhere else now, in that place where the work does itself, where time doesn't exist, where you and the wall are the only things in the universe. In the late afternoon, you reach the end of the wall. Not the end of the building. There's still more to do, more courses to add, more stones to place. But the end of this section, this stretch, this particular phase of the work. You place the last stone and step back, and for a moment you don't know what to do with yourself. Your hands hang at your sides, empty, waiting for the next stone that isn't there. You look at the wall. It's beautiful. Not in the way a painting is beautiful, or a piece of music, but in a deeper way, a more permanent way. It's honest. Every stone is exactly where it should be, doing exactly what it should do, and together they've become something that's more than the sum of their parts. The wall has a presence now, a solidity, a rightness that you can feel even from a distance. You walk along it, running your hand along the stones you've placed. Some are warm from the sun, others cool in the shade. Some are rough, others smooth. Each has its own voice, its own story, its own place in the wall's long life. You feel the rhythm of the courses, the way the stones flow into each other, the way the batter leans inward, the way the through stones tie everything together. It's all there, all the work of the past weeks, all the decisions and adjustments and small victories, captured in stone. You sit down at the base of the wall, your back against it, and you close your eyes. The stone is cool through your brat, solid and unmoving, and you feel it pressing against you, supporting you, holding you up. This wall will outlast you. This wall will stand for centuries, long after you're gone, long after everyone you know is gone. And somewhere in that future, someone will sit against it the way you're sitting now, and they'll feel its solidity, its permanence, and they'll never know who built it or why or how. But you know. And for now, that's enough. You sit against the growing wall and notice the lichen patterns on stones you placed hours ago, already belonging to this place. The sun is high now, a rare thing in this season, and you've chosen a spot where the wall casts a thin shadow, just enough to keep the worst of the heat off your face. Your back is against the stones you placed this morning, and you can feel their warmth seeping through your brat, a pleasant contrast to the cool damp that usually seeps through everything. In your hands is the same meal you've eaten every day for weeks, oatcake, a bit of cheese, an onion, and you chew slowly, deliberately, making it last. Your eyes wander over the wall as you eat, tracing the lines of stones, the patterns of light and shadow, the small variations that make this wall yours. And that's when you notice the lichen. On a stone you placed this morning, a good stone, flat-faced and square, chosen for its clean lines, there's a patch of lichen you didn't see before. It's small, maybe the size of your thumbnail, gray-green and crusty, and it's growing on a part of the stone that was facing down when you found it in the field. You turned that face outward when you placed it, exposing it to the sun and rain for the first time in who knows how long. And already the lichen is there, already claiming its new home. You lean closer, studying it. Lichen is strange stuff, not quite plant, not quite fungus, something in between that scientists would argue about if scientists existed in this time and place. It grows slowly, so slowly that a patch the size of your hand might be 100 years old. This patch, this tiny thing, might have taken decades to reach its current size. And now it's on your wall, on a stone that's been in this position for only a few hours, and it looks like it's been there forever. You look at other stones, older ones you placed weeks ago when you first started building. The lichen on them is more established, spreading across the surfaces, claiming territory. Some stones have multiple kinds, the gray-green crusty kind, a leafy kind that peels away from the stone, a bright orange kind that looks almost like paint. Each lichen has its own preference, its own idea of where it wants to grow. And together they are turning your wall into something that looks ancient, permanent, inevitable. Historians still argue whether the builders of old walls considered lichen when they chose their stones. Some say they must have, because lichen can hide cracks, can make a stone look sound when it's actually flawed, can deceive the eye in ways that matter. Others say they didn't care, that lichen was just part of the landscape, something to be ignored or scraped off if it got in the way. You didn't think about lichen when you chose your stones. You chose them for shape and size and grain, not for their decorations. But now that you're seeing them, now that you're noticing the patterns, you wonder if you should have. The stone with the small patch, the one you placed this morning, it's a good stone regardless of its lichen. But the lichen adds something, doesn't it? It adds age, history, a connection to the place that goes beyond your work. This lichen has been growing on this stone since before you were born, since before your father was born, since before anyone in your family was born. It's been waiting all that time to be turned to the sun, to spread across a surface that faces the light, to become visible. And now it has its chance. You finish your oatcake and wipe your hands on your trousers. Then you stand and walk along the wall, studying the lichen on each stone. Some stones have almost none. The ones that were buried deepest, probably, or the ones that were broken recently, their fresh surfaces not yet colonized. Others are covered, almost furry with it, the lichen so thick you can barely see the stone beneath. Those stones must have been exposed for a long time, maybe centuries, before you found them and moved them. They carry their age on their surfaces, visible to anyone who looks. You reach a stone that's particularly beautiful, covered in orange lichen that glows in the sunlight. You placed this stone last week, in a section where the wall curves slightly to follow the contour of the field. You remember choosing it because of its shape, because it fit perfectly into a gap that nothing else would fill. You didn't notice the orange then. Or maybe you did, but you didn't think about it. Now, in this light, it's almost too bright to look at. A patch of color that seems to come from somewhere other than this gray-green world. You run your finger over the lichen, feeling its texture. It's rough, almost like dried paint, and it flakes slightly under your touch. You stop immediately, pulling your hand back, not wanting to damage something that's taken decades to grow. This lichen is older than you. It deserves more respect than a casual touch. Your son appears at the edge of the field, carrying the water cup. He's been coming every day now, sometimes with water, sometimes with food, sometimes just to watch. He's learned to read the wall too, to see the differences between stones, to notice the small things that make a wall good or not. You wave him over and he comes, his bare feet finding paths through the stones, and he sits beside you at the base of the wall. You point to the orange lichen and tell him its name, or the name your father told you, which may or may not be the real name. You tell him how old it is, how slow it grows, how long it takes to make a patch that size. He stares at it, his young mind trying to comprehend a timescale that long, a patience that deep. You can see him struggling with it, the way children struggle with anything that happened before they were born. You tell him about the other lichens too, the gray ones and the green ones and the black ones that look like old leather. You show him how they're different, how they grow in different places, how some like the tops of stones and some like the sides and some only grow where water runs after rain. You show him how to read the wall through its lichens, to see which stones have been here longest, which have been moved recently, which are new to this place. He listens, and you can see him storing it away, adding it to the growing collection of things he knows about walls and stones and the slow processes that shape this world. He'll forget some of it, probably, but some will stick, will become part of the way he sees things, will shape the builder he'll become. You drink the water he brought and hand the cup back, and he sits with you for a while longer, both of you looking at the wall, at the lichen, at the way the afternoon light makes everything look golden and soft. Neither of you speaks. There's no need. After a while, he stands and heads back to the house, running through the grass the way children run, as if there's no reason to walk when you could be moving faster. You watch him go, and then you turn back to the wall, to the lichen, to the slow work of noticing. The rest of the afternoon passes in this observation. You don't build much, just a few stones here and there, mostly small adjustments to sections that weren't quite right. Mostly you walk along the wall, looking, learning, seeing what the lichen has to tell you. And it tells you a lot, once you start listening. The stones that came from the wettest parts of the field have different lichens than the ones from the dry slopes. The stones that were partially buried have a line where the lichen stops, a clear boundary between the part that was exposed and the part that was hidden. The stones that have been moved before, the reused ones from older walls, have multiple lichen communities, overlapping and competing, telling the story of their previous lives. You find a stone that must have been in a wall before, centuries ago. It's covered in lichen on all sides, even the parts that were buried in your field, which means it was exposed to air for a long time before it ended up in the ground. There are marks on it too, tool marks, the kind made by a stone hammer or a chisel, shaping it for some purpose you can't guess. This stone has been worked, has been part of something built, has been knocked down and buried and then found again, and now it's in your wall, starting its third life. You run your hands over it, feeling the tool marks, the lichen, the ancient surface. This stone has seen things you'll never see, been part of buildings you'll never know, outlasted everyone who ever touched it before you. And now it's yours, or at least it's in your wall, part of your work, contributing to something that will outlast you too. The sun begins to sink toward the western hills, and the light changes, becoming longer, softer, more golden. The lichen glows in this light, the oranges and yellows and greens becoming almost luminous, as if the stones themselves are producing light. You stand at the end of the wall and look back along its length, and you see it as the lichen sees it, as a new home, a new place to grow, a new surface on which to live its slow, patient life. You think about the future, about the centuries to come, about the lichen that will spread across these stones, covering them, softening them, making them look ancient. You think about the people who will see this wall then, who will run their hands over the lichen and wonder how old it is, how long it's been growing, how many generations have passed since the stones were placed. They'll never know your name. They'll never know that you were the one who built this wall. But they'll see your work, feel its solidity, and maybe, just maybe, they'll wonder about the hands that placed these stones, the eyes that chose them, the life that built them. And that's enough. That's more than enough. You pretend not to watch the old man studying your work from his own field, knowing your wall will be discussed at the next gathering. He's been there for an hour now, leaning on his stick, not moving, just looking. His name is Padraig, and he's farmed the land to the west for longer than anyone can remember. Since before your father was born, since before the great hunger that your grandparents spoke of in whispers, since before the English started looking at this valley with hungry eyes. He's seen walls built and walls fall, seen good builders and bad ones, seen work that lasted and work that didn't. And now he's studying yours. You keep working, placing stones, filling heart, doing the 1,000 small tasks that still need doing before the wall is finished. But part of you is always aware of him, always tracking his position, always wondering what he's thinking. Is he impressed? Is he finding fault? Is he comparing your work to the walls he built in his youth, the ones that still stand along his own boundaries? You'll never know until he speaks, and he may never speak. That's the way of old men. They watch, they judge, and they take their judgments to the grave. The wall is nearly complete now. Just a few more courses to go in the lower sections, just the capstones to place along the top. It's a good wall, you think. Solid, straight. The batter is consistent, the through stones are well placed, the heart is packed tight. You've done good work here, work you can be proud of. But will Padraig think so? Will he nod the way he nodded before? That small movement that meant everything? Or will he shake his head and walk away, condemning your work with his silence? You think about the gatherings he'll attend, the ones where men sit by fires and talk about crops and weather and the doings of neighbors. Your wall will be discussed there, you know. It will be measured against other walls, judged against standards you can only guess at. And Padraig's opinion will matter, will carry weight, will shape what others think. If he approves, your reputation will grow. If he doesn't, you'll have to live with the knowledge that the old man thinks your work is lacking. You try not to care. You tell yourself that the wall is for you, for your family, for the land, not for the approval of old men. But you do care. You care a great deal. Because Padraig knows things you don't, has seen things you haven't, understands walls in a way you're only beginning to grasp. His approval would mean something. His disapproval would mean something too. Historians still argue whether the social pressure of neighbors affected the quality of medieval building. Some say it must have. That in small communities where everyone knew everyone's business, shame was a powerful motivator, and no one wanted to be known as the person who built a bad wall. Others say people built as well as they could regardless, because a bad wall was its own punishment. It fell down, it let the sheep escape, it caused more work in the long run. You don't know which is true. You only know that Padraig's eyes on your wall make you work more carefully, more deliberately, more thoughtfully than you might otherwise. You choose a stone for the top course, a good one, flat and long, the kind that will make a clean line along the wall's crest. You place it carefully, checking its fit, its level, its relationship to the stones around it. You tap it with your palm to settle it, then step back and look. It's good. It's really good. You allow yourself a small moment of satisfaction before you turn back to the pile for the next stone. Out of the corner of your eye, you see Padraig shift his weight, adjusting his grip on his stick. He's still watching, still judging, still saying nothing. The afternoon wears on. You work your way along the wall, placing the top course stones, fitting them together, creating the final layer before the capstones go on. It's satisfying work, this finishing stage, because you can see the wall becoming complete, can see the shape you've been working toward finally emerging. The stones are smaller now, easier to handle, but they require more care because they are the last thing anyone will see, the final impression the wall will make. You come to a section where the top course doesn't quite work. The stones you have don't fit the space, don't create the clean line you want, don't do what they need to do. You try different combinations, different orientations, different stones, and nothing works. The wall is fighting you, refusing to cooperate, insisting on its own way. You step back, frustrated, and that's when you notice Padraig. He's moved closer, still in his own field but nearer now, close enough that you could call out to him if you wanted to. He's looking at the same section you're struggling with, studying it with those old eyes that have seen everything. You wait, hoping he'll say something, offer some advice, break the silence that's stretched between you all afternoon. He doesn't speak. He just looks, and then he turns and walks away, slowly, carefully, picking his way back toward his own house. You watch him go, feeling something between relief and disappointment. He didn't condemn you, but he didn't approve either. He just watched, and then he left, and you're no wiser about what he thinks than you were when he arrived. You turn back to the wall, to the section that won't work, and you try again. This time, with Padraig gone, you approach it differently. You're not trying to impress anyone now. You're just trying to solve a problem, to fit stones together, to make the wall work. And somehow, without the weight of those old eyes on you, the solution comes. You find a stone you overlooked, a stone that's been sitting in the pile since the beginning, waiting for this exact moment. You place it, and it fits, and the section is done. You stand back and look at it, and it's good. It's as good as anything you've done on this wall. Better, maybe, because you did it for yourself, not for Padraig, not for anyone. You did it because the wall needed it, because the stones wanted it, because that's what builders do. The sun is sinking now, the light turning golden orange, and you know you'll have to stop soon. But first, you want to finish this section, to see the top course complete along this whole stretch. You work quickly but carefully, placing stone after stone, the rhythm returning, the flow carrying you forward. The pile beside the wall shrinks. The top course grows. The wall becomes what it was always meant to be. As you place the last stone, you hear a sound behind you. You turn, and there's Padraig again, standing at the boundary, closer than before. He's holding something, a stone, a small one, dark and smooth, different from the limestone of this valley. He holds it out to you, and you take it, not understanding. He speaks for the first time. His voice is rough, unused. The voice of a man who's spent more time with sheep than with people. From the old wall, he says. My grandfather's wall. Put it in yours. You look at the stone in your hand. It's not like the others. Darker, harder, shaped by tools you don't recognize. It's been in a wall before, a long time ago, in a wall that's gone now, fallen or robbed or simply worn away by centuries. And now Padraig wants you to put it in your wall, to connect your work to his grandfather's, to make a bridge across time. You nod, not trusting yourself to speak. You carry the stone to the wall, to a place near the top, a place where it will be visible, where anyone who looks can see it. You fit it into a gap, a small gap you've been saving, not knowing why. It fits perfectly, as if it's been waiting for this spot since Padraig's grandfather placed it in his own wall generations ago. You step back, and Padraig nods. That same nod from before, the one that means everything. Then he turns and walks away, into the gathering dark. And you watch him go until he's just a shadow, then nothing. You stand alone with your wall, with the strange dark stone in its surface, with the weight of the old man's approval settling over you. Tomorrow you'll place the capstones, finish the work, call this wall done. But tonight, you stand in the fading light and feel something you can't name. Gratitude, maybe, or humility, or just the simple satisfaction of being part of something larger than yourself. The wall stretches before you, solid and permanent, and somewhere in its surface, a stone from another wall, another time, another builder, has found a new home. You encounter a gap that refuses your logic and must choose whether to fight the rock or listen to what it wants. It's late in the day, late in the project, and you're tired in ways that go beyond the physical. The wall is almost complete, just this one section left, just these few feet where the top course needs to be finished, where the capstones will eventually sit. But the stones here won't cooperate. They shift when you place them, rock when you test them, refuse to settle into the solid fit that every stone in this wall has found. Something is wrong, and you can't figure out what. You've tried a dozen stones from the pile, each one carefully selected, each one placed with the same care you've used throughout. None of them work. They either sit too high, creating a bump that will throw off the capstones, or too low, leaving a gap that will never fill. They wobble when you touch them, a tiny movement that will only get worse over time, that will eventually cause the stones above to shift and settle and maybe fall. You can't leave them like this. You have to fix it. You step back and look at the section, trying to see it differently. What is it about this place that's causing the problem? The stones below are sound, well placed, solid. The batter is correct. The through stones are doing their job. The heart is packed tight. Everything below this point is right. So why won't the top course behave? You crouch and study the stones below, running your hands over them, feeling for something you can't see. And then you find it. A stone in the course below, a good stone, a stone you placed days ago and thought nothing of, is slightly tilted. Not much, just a degree or two, just enough to throw off everything above it. You hadn't noticed when you placed it, and you hadn't noticed when you built on top of it, because the stones in the next course compensated, adjusted, hid the tilt. But now, at the top, with nowhere left to compensate, the tilt has become a problem. You have a decision to make. You can leave it and hope the capstone somehow fix it. Hope that the weight above will press everything into place. Hope that your eyes are wrong and the wall will be fine. Or you can take it apart, remove the tilted stone, and rebuild from there down. You start taking it apart. It's worse than before, worse than the last time you had to do this, because now you're near the top and the stones are smaller and more numerous. You work carefully, lifting each stone and setting it aside in order, creating piles that will make rebuilding possible. The sun sinks lower as you work, and you know you're racing against darkness now, trying to fix this before the light fails completely. The tilted stone emerges, and you hold it in your hands, this stone that's caused all the trouble. It's not a bad stone, it's actually a good one, well-shaped, sound, the kind of stone you'd normally be happy to use. But it's tilted, and you placed it that way, and now you're paying for your mistake. You look at the stones below it, the ones that supported it, and you see that they are not quite level either. Not tilted like this one, but not perfectly flat, not providing the stable base that a good wall needs. The problem goes deeper than one stone. The problem goes back to the foundation, maybe, to choices you made weeks ago that are only now showing their consequences. You sit back on your heels and look at the wall, really look at it, and you realize something you should have realized long ago. The wall isn't just a thing you're building. It's a conversation. Every stone you place is a statement, a question, a response to the stones below it and beside it and above it. And sometimes, the conversation goes wrong. Sometimes you say something that doesn't make sense, and the stones tell you, and you have to go back and say it again, differently. Historians still argue whether the builders of ancient walls ever had to make these kinds of corrections, or whether their skill was so great that they got it right the first time every time. Some say the great walls of the past were built by masters who never made mistakes, whose hands were guided by something beyond ordinary skill. Others say those masters made plenty of mistakes, but they fixed them, and the walls we see today are the result of that fixing, not of perfect first attempts. You know which is true. You're living it. You begin to rebuild, this time paying attention to the level of each stone, checking not just its fit but its tilt, its relationship to the stones around it. You place each stone carefully, testing it, adjusting it, making sure it's right before you move on. It's slow work, painstaking work, but it's the only way to fix what went wrong. As you rebuild, you think about the stones and what they want. It sounds strange, even to you, but you've come to believe that stones have preferences, have ideas about where they should go and how they should sit. Some of them want to be high, some low, some tilted, some flat. Your job is to find the preference and either honor it or override it, depending on what the wall needs. This stone, the one that caused all the trouble, it wanted to be tilted. You honored that preference, and it was wrong. You should have overridden it, found a different stone, or placed this one differently. But you didn't, and now you're fixing it. You placed the stone again, this time level, this time right. It fights you at first, doesn't want to sit flat, wants to tilt the way it did before. You hold it in place with one hand while you pack small stones underneath, building up the low side, forcing it to be level. It protests, shifts, tries to find its old position. You hold firm, keep packing, keep forcing. Finally, it settles. It's level. It's right. The conversation has been corrected. You build on top of it, placing the stones that were above it, then the ones that were above them, until you've reached the top course again. You test the new surface with your hand, feeling for movement, for wobble, for any sign that the problem isn't fixed. It's solid, rock solid. The wall is right again. You stand and stretch, your back complaining, your hands raw. The light is almost gone now, just a thin line of orange on the western horizon. You've been working in near darkness for the last hour, placing stones by feel more than sight, trusting your hands to know what your eyes couldn't see. And they did. They knew. You walk along the finished section, running your hand along the top course, feeling the rightness of it. The stones are level, solid, ready for the capstones that will come tomorrow. The disagreement has been resolved. The wall is at peace. In the darkness, you hear a sound, footsteps, approaching. You turn and see a figure coming toward you, and for a moment you think it's Padraig again, come to check on your work. But it's not. It's your wife, carrying a lantern, coming to fetch you home. She reaches you and holds up the lantern, its light falling on the wall, on your hands, on your face. She doesn't ask what you're doing out here in the dark. She doesn't need to. She knows. She's always known. You take the lantern from her and together you walk back toward the house, leaving the wall to the darkness, to the night, to the slow work of settling into itself. Behind you, the stones are silent, but you know they are not finished with you yet. Tomorrow, there will be more conversations, more disagreements, more resolutions. That's the way of walls. That's the way of stones. But tonight, the wall is what it is, And what it is right. You lift the last stones to the top, feeling the wall's spine complete itself under your palms as the day begins its fade. These are not like the other stones. These are special, chosen with care over the weeks of building, set aside in a separate pile so they wouldn't be accidentally used in the courses below. They are flat on top, or as flat as you could find, because the capstones need to shed water, need to protect the heart of the wall from the rain that will try to find its way inside. They are also heavy, heavier than they look, because they need to stay in place, need to resist the wind and the curious hands of children and the rubbing of sheep. A capstone that blows off is a failure, a sign of poor work, a thing that will have to be fixed. Yours will not blow off. You lift the first one from the pile and carry it to the wall. It's a good stone, one you've been saving for weeks, knowing it would be perfect for this spot near the corner where the wall meets the old boundary. You set it on the top course, adjusting it carefully, feeling for the right fit. It rocks slightly, just a little, and you reach for small flat stones to chink underneath, to make it stable. You slide them in one by one, testing after each, until the stone sits solid and unmoving. You push on it with your full weight, and it doesn't shift. Good. You step back and look at it. The capstone changes the wall somehow, completes it, gives it a finished look that wasn't there before. The wall below has been waiting for this moment, for these final stones to crown its efforts, to make it whole. Now, with this one in place, the wall is closer to being done. You move to the next spot, where another capstone waits. This one is longer, narrower, the kind of stone that will span two of the stones below, tying them together, adding to the wall's integrity. You place it carefully, checking its fit, its level, its relationship to the stones around it. It settles into place with a solid thunk, the sound of a stone that knows it belongs. The work continues along the wall, capstone after capstone, each one finding its place, each one making the wall more complete. The sun is low now, casting long shadows across the field, and you're aware that you're racing against darkness again. But you don't rush. You can't rush. Capstones placed in haste are capstones that will fail, and you've come too far to let haste undo your work. Your son appears, sent perhaps by your wife to call you home. But he doesn't call. He just watches, standing at a distance, his young eyes taking in the final stage of the wall he's watched grow from nothing. You wave him over, and he comes, and you show him what you're doing. You show him how to choose a capstone, how to test it, how to chink it until it's solid. You hand him a small flat stone and let him slide it under a capstone that needs it. And his face lights up when the stone stops rocking and settles into place. You work together, father and son, placing the last capstones as the light fades around you. You don't talk much, there's no need, but you're aware of him beside you, aware of his small hands doing the same work your hands are doing. Aware that you're teaching him something that will matter long after you're gone. Historians still argue whether the capstones on ancient walls were purely functional or whether they had symbolic meaning as well. Some say they were just practical, a way to protect the wall from water and wind, nothing more. Others say they must have meant something, must have been seen as the completion of the work, the moment when a pile of stones became a wall, when the builder's intention was finally realized. You don't know which is true. You only know that placing these last stones feels different from all the work that came before. It feels like finishing. It feels like something coming to an end. You reach the last gap, the final spot where a capstone is needed. It's near the far end of the wall, where the new work meets the old boundary wall, the one that's been standing for centuries. You've saved a special stone for this spot, one you found early in the project and knew immediately was meant for this place. It's larger than the others, darker, shaped by tools you don't recognize, and it has a hollow in its top that will hold water. Not ideal for a capstone, but somehow right for this spot. You lift it with effort, your arms trembling with the weight, and you carry it to the wall. You set it in place, and it fits. Of course it fits. It's been waiting for this spot since before you were born, since before your father was born, since before anyone in this valley was born. It settles into place with a sound that's almost like a sigh, and you step back and look at it. The wall is complete. You stand there, at the end of the wall, and you look back along its length. It stretches away from you, 100 feet or more of stone in care and work, running straight across the field until it meets the old wall at the other end. The capstones catch the last light, glowing orange and gold, and the wall below them is solid and true, the batter just right, the face is straight, the whole thing looking like it's been here forever. Your son stands beside you, looking too. Neither of you speaks. There's nothing to say that would be enough. After a long moment, you walk along the wall, running your hand along the capstones, feeling the completion of it. Each stone is solid, unmoving, exactly where it should be. You reach the end and turn and walk back, and your son follows, doing the same thing, his small hand running along the stones the way yours does. At the far end, you stop and look at the wall one more time. The light is almost gone now, just a thin line on the horizon, and the wall is becoming a shadow, a dark line against the darkening field. But you can still see it, still feel it, still know it's there. You think about all the weeks of work, all the stones you've lifted, all the decisions you've made, all the small victories and defeats that have gone into this wall. You think about the blisters and the back pain and the frustration, and you think about the moments of peace and flow and satisfaction. You think about Padraig's nod, and your son's hands placing heart stones, and the lichen already growing on the stones you placed weeks ago. You think about all of it, and you know that it was worth it. Every moment of it was worth it. Your son tugs at your sleeve, and you realize he's cold, tired, ready to go home. You put your hand on his shoulder and together you walk away from the wall, toward the house, toward the fire and the food and the family waiting there. Behind you, the wall stands in the darkness, complete at last, ready to begin its long life. You walk the finished length and run your hand along its back, feeling the 1,000 years it will stand after you are gone. The light is soft now, that particular quality of light that comes just before sunset, when everything seems to glow from within. The wall catches this light and holds it, the gray limestone warming to gold, the lichen brightening to orange and green, the whole structure seeming to breathe with the day's last exhalation. You walk slowly, your hand never leaving the stone, feeling the texture of each block, the slight variations in temperature, the way the wall has already begun to settle into the landscape. It's strange to think that this wall wasn't here a few months ago. Stranger still to think that you're the reason it's here now, that these stones that have been scattered across this field for millennia have been gathered and stacked and made into something new. You try to remember what this place looked like before the wall, and you can't. The wall has already become part of the landscape in your mind, already become inevitable, already become something that was always here. You reach the corner where the new wall meets the old boundary, and you stop. The old wall is different, older, more weathered, its stones softened by centuries of rain and wind. The lichen on it is thick, almost furry. In places you can barely see the stone beneath. It leans slightly, as old walls do, its batter more pronounced from years of settling and shifting. But it's still standing, still doing its job, still marking the boundary between this field and the next. Your wall will be like that someday. In 100 years, in 500 years, it will look like this old wall looks now. Ancient, permanent, inevitable. You run your hand along the join between old and new, feeling how your work connects to the work of builders long dead. You think about them sometimes, those builders, wonder who they were and what they thought about as they placed these stones. They were probably like you, farmers, mostly, with families to feed and fields to tend and walls to build. They probably had blisters and sore backs and moments of frustration. They probably stood here at the end of their work, running their hands along the stones, feeling the same mix of exhaustion and satisfaction you're feeling now. Historians still argue about the age of the old walls that crisscross the Irish countryside. Some say most of them are medieval, built after the Norman invasion to enclose newly privatized land. Others say many are older, dating back to the early Christian period or even before, when the first farmers began to divide the land into fields. A few claim some walls are prehistoric, built by the same people who raised the great stone forts and passage tombs, their techniques passed down through generations until they became simply what everyone did. You don't know which is true. You only know that this old wall has been here a long time, and your new wall will be here a long time too. You continue along your wall, your hands still touching the stones, feeling their solidity, their permanence. The sun has dropped below the horizon now, and the light is fading fast, but you don't want to go inside yet. You want to stay with the wall a little longer, to be with it in its first evening of completeness, to mark this moment in some way you can't quite name. At the far end, you stop and turn and look back along the length. The wall is a dark line against the darkening field, but you can still see it, still trace its course with your eyes. It runs straight and true from one boundary to the other, dividing the field in a way that feels natural, feels right, feels like it's always been this way. You think about the future, about all the years this wall will stand. You'll be dead in 50 years, probably, if you're lucky. Your children will be dead in 80 or 90. Your grandchildren might live to see the next century, but they'll be old then, and the wall will still be here, still standing, still doing its job. And after them, others will come, people you'll never know, names you'll never hear, and they'll lean against this wall on summer evenings and never once think about the man who built it. That thought doesn't sadden you. It's just a fact, like the weight of a stone or the wetness of rain. You've made something that will outlast you, that will outlast everyone you know, that will become part of the landscape for as long as there are people here to see it. That's enough. That's more than enough. You sit down at the base of the wall, your back against the stones, and you look out across the field. The last light is gone now, and the stars are beginning to appear, faint at first, then brighter as the sky darkens. You can hear the sheep moving in the distance, settling for the night, and the sound of the stream that runs through the bottom of the field, and the wind moving through the grass. These are the sounds you've heard every night of your life, the sounds of this place, this valley, this world. The wall is warm against your back, holding the day's heat, and you feel its solidity, its permanence, its patience. This wall will be here tomorrow, and the next day, and the next, long after you've stopped coming to sit against it. It will be here through storms and droughts, through summers and winters, through good years and bad. It will be here when your children's children are old, when the world has changed in ways you can't imagine, when everything you know is gone. And somewhere in that future, someone will sit against this wall the way you're sitting now, and they'll feel its warmth, its solidity, its permanence, and they'll know, without knowing how they know, that it was built with care. They'll run their hands along the stones and feel the work that went into them, the attention, the patience, the love. They'll know that someone, long ago, cared enough to build something that would last. You close your eyes and listen to the night. The sounds of the field surround you, familiar and comforting, and the wall holds you up, supports you, keeps you from falling. You could stay here all night. You think. You could fall asleep against this wall and wake with the dawn. Your back still against the stones, the wall still standing, the world still turning. But your wife will worry, and your children will wonder where you are, and the fire will be burning low in the hearth. You push yourself up, your body complaining after the long day, and you stand for a moment with your hand on the wall, saying goodbye, or thank you, or something in between. Then you turn and walk toward the house, toward the light that glows through the gaps in the door, toward the voices of your family, toward the life that waits for you inside. Behind you, the wall stands in the darkness, patient and permanent, ready for the centuries to come. You lie down in your dark cabin and feel the wall still building itself inside your bones, stone by stone by stone. The fire has burned low, just embers now. They're glowed just enough to see the shapes of things, the table, the stools, the sleeping forms of your children bundled in their blankets. Your wife is beside you, already asleep, her breathing slow and regular, and you try to match it, to find the same rhythm, to let go of the day and slip into the darkness. But you can't. Not yet. The wall is still with you, still present, still demanding your attention. You close your eyes and you see stones, thousands of them, millions of them, stacked and fitted and packed into a line that runs across the field and into the night. You see the ones you placed today, the capstones, sitting solid on the top course, catching the last light. You see the ones from weeks ago, the foundation stones, buried now under the weight of everything above them. You see the through stones, reaching across the wall's heart, binding it together. You see all of them, every stone you've touched and lifted and placed, and they are all still there, still in your mind, still building themselves into something you can't quite name. Your hands ache. They've been aching for weeks now, but tonight it's different. A deeper ache, a bone ache, the kind that comes from work that's finally done. You flex your fingers in the darkness, feeling the stiffness, the thickness of the calluses, the places where the skin has cracked and healed and cracked again. These hands have done something, you think. These hands have made something that will last. You think about the wall, out there in the darkness, standing alone for the first time. It's complete now, finished, done. The last stone was placed, the last gap filled, the last adjustment made. Tomorrow you'll walk along it in the daylight and see it properly, see all the things you couldn't see in the fading light. But tonight, it's out there, and you're in here, and there's a distance between you that wasn't there before. Historians still argue about what the builders of ancient walls felt when their work was done. Some say they felt pride, satisfaction, the pleasure of a job well done. Others say they felt loss, the emptiness that comes when a long labor is finished and there's nothing left to do. A few say they felt nothing special, that building was just work, and when the work was done they moved on to the next thing, the way you always do. You don't know which is true. You only know that you feel something, here in the darkness, and you can't quite name it. The wall is in your bones now. You can feel it there, a weight, a structure, something that's become part of you in ways you don't understand. Every stone you lifted, every decision you made, every moment of frustration and satisfaction and simple presence, it's all still there. Still inside you, still building itself into the person you've become. You'll carry this wall with you for the rest of your life, not as a memory but as something deeper, something that's been woven into the fabric of who you are. You think about your son, asleep in his corner, and you wonder if he'll feel this way someday. Will he build walls of his own? And will they become part of him the way this one has become part of you? Will he lie awake at night with stones in his mind, with the weight of his work pressing against his bones? Will he understand, finally, what it means to make something that will outlast you. You hope so. You hope he'll have this strange gift that the work gives you, this sense of being connected to something larger than yourself. You hope he'll know the satisfaction of a stone that fits perfectly, the frustration of a gap that won't close, the peace of sitting against a finished wall and watching the light fade. You hope he'll understand, the way you're beginning to understand, that building with stone is about more than just dividing fields or keeping sheep in. It's about making something permanent in a world where nothing else lasts. It's about leaving a mark, however small, however anonymous, on the landscape that will outlast you. It's about being part of something that continues, that goes on, that doesn't end when you end. Your eyes are heavy now. Finally, the long day catching up with you. The stones in your mind are beginning to fade, to settle, to find their places in the wall that's become part of you. You feel them stacking, course by course, building upward into the darkness of your sleep. You feel the batter, the inward slope that makes the wall strong. You feel the through stones, tying everything together. You feel the capstones, solid on top, protecting what's below. And somewhere, in the space between waking and sleeping, you feel the wall complete itself. The last stone settles into place. The last gap closes. The last adjustment is made. And the wall stands, finished at last, in your mind and in the field and in all the years to come. You breathe out, long and slow, and the wall breathes with you. Outside, the wind moves through the grass, and the stars turn slowly overhead, and the wall stands in the darkness, waiting for the dawn. Inside, you sleep at last, your hands still aching, your bones still holding the memory of stones, your dreams full of walls that stretch to the horizon and beyond. And somewhere, in the deep place where time doesn't matter, the wall is still building itself, stone by stone by stone, into something that will last forever. The fire has burned down to ash now, just a faint warmth in the darkness, and your breathing has found its rhythm at last, slow and deep and regular. The wall stands outside, patient and permanent, doing what walls do, waiting, watching, holding the line between one thing and another. It will be there in the morning when you wake, and it will be there long after you've stopped waking, and it will be there for all the mornings that come after, for as long as there are mornings to come. You don't dream of anything, or if you do, you don't remember. The stones have settled now, in your mind and in the field, and there's nothing left to do but rest. So you rest, deep in the darkness, held by the house and the land and the wall you built, all of it together keeping you safe until the light returns. And when the light does return, when the first gray of dawn seeps through the gaps in the door, you'll wake and stretch and go outside, and you'll see the wall standing there in the new day, solid and true, and you'll know that it's good. You'll know that you did what you set out to do, that you made something that matters, that you left your mark on this place in the only way that lasts. But that's for the morning. For now, there's only this, the darkness, the warmth, the slow rhythm of breath, and the wall, standing outside, waiting for the centuries to come.